in the 19th century, a power would rise. This power would be known as the false prophet. It would also be symbolized as the beast that came up out of the earth. And according to the Bible, this power would look like a lamb, but it would also speak like a dragon. And this power is none other than the United States of America.
And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over.
Now, many in my denomination, including myself, believe that the time of the end began with the fall of the papacy in 1798. However, because verse 40 begins with the phrase time of the end, many are suggesting that the fall of the papacy didn't occur until verse 40 as opposed to verse 36. But there's two problems with this theory. You must understand that the time of the end is not limited to a specific year or a specific event. We understand that the time of the end began in 1798, but that doesn't mean that the time of the end always refers to 1798. Thus, we understand that when we see the phrase the time of the end, it can be in 1798, but it could also be any time after 1798 until the end of the world. The second problem that we have with this theory is that verse 40 declares that the king of the north responded with chariots, with horsemen, and with ships. However, history records no such response from the papacy after its fall to France or any other power for that matter. So what superpower had the ability to respond militarily after the year 1798 in this manner? The United States of America. If you remember in our previous study, we revealed that the final dismantling of the Ottoman Empire occurred in the year 1922. And understanding that the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 11 is forward looking and doesn't go backward, we now look for a power that was reigning, a superpower that was reigning after the year 1922. And thus we understand that the United States of America came into superpower status around the year 1898. And thus we must understand that now in verses 40 through 45, it is detailing the actions of the United States of America. Now, the obvious question here is, how can verses 40 through 45 refer to the United States of America when I already declared in episode 1 of this series that from verse 16 on down represents the Roman Empire? Simple. We still declare that Rome is the power that began in verse 16 and ends in verse number 45. We still maintain this idea simply because what most people do not understand is that the United States of America is Rome. Now, before you throw your computer away, please understand, I'm not suggesting that America is literally part of the Roman Empire, but biblically speaking, we are still under the dispensation of the Roman Empire. We're still under the era of the Roman Empire. And this is why, as I've told you before in previous videos, it is very important that you understand the significance of 666. Because if you don't understand the meaning of 666, you won't understand why it is that the United States of America is still part of the Roman Empire. And for those of you who haven't seen my video on 666, or you're not exactly certain what 666 means, What I want you to understand is that the Bible declares there will be 8 world powers. The last 3 of these world powers are found in Revelation 12 and 13. They are the dragon, which is the 6th power, the beast, which is the 7th power, and the false prophet, which is the 8th power. Understand that the beast received its power and seat and authority from the 6th power. Then we see that the false prophet spoke with the voice of the 6th power. Thus we see that although the dragon, beast, and false prophet are numerically the 6th, 7th, and 8th powers, spiritually they are the 6th power, the 6th power, and yet again the 6th power. Now, what you must understand is that the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet are 3 separate entities. But according to Revelation 16, they are part of the same city, and that city is spiritual Babylon. Thus, we understand that even though they are 3 separate powers, spiritually they are one in the same. Therefore, even though Daniel 11 ends with the reign of the United States of America, it still ends with the dispensation of the Roman Empire, as America is the 3rd phase of the Roman Empire. Now that we understand that the King of the North has transitioned to the United States of America, now we must determine who is the King of the South. And even though the Ottoman Empire has already been dismantled at this point, what I want us to understand is that the Ottoman Empire places us in the location of the world that is relevant for these end times, and that is North Africa and the Middle East. Now, our experience with the King of the South reveals that the King of the South is the power that is always ruling Egypt or North Africa, and I see no reason to change that policy now. And however, from my observation, it appears that in the last days, the King of the South will be part of a conglomeration. It'll be part of an alliance, a league, if you will. And this league will be in control of North Africa at the end of time. And I believe that this league today is currently called the Arab League. And when we look at the Arab League, we understand that they have all the territories that are relevant, that are part of the King of the South. And not only is the Arab League administered through the country of Egypt, but its members also include Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Lebanon. And you may be wondering, why are these countries even relevant? That's because these are the same countries that hijackers came from that pulled off the most devastating terrorist attack on US soil, the September 11th terror attacks. In this manner, we can see that the King of the South, which is administered through the Arab League, pushed at the King of the North, the United States of America, on September 11, 2001. And now we can see that America responded to this push through what the president at that time termed the War on Terror. And how did we kick off this war on terror? George W. Bush called it shock and awe. And what did we do? We responded like a whirlwind by sending our chariots, by sending our horsemen and ships. Now, obviously, the angel is using language that Daniel would understand. I mean, can you imagine if the angel had to explain to Daniel what a tank or a Humvee is? And thus we see America responds with its tanks, its Humvees, and many ships, and they enter into countries, and they overflowed and passed over.
He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon.
Now understand, everything from verse 41 and on down is yet to occur. It is the future. And thus we understand that I don't have history to fall back on. I'm only looking at what I believe the Lord has revealed to me. And I must be clear with you is that I could be wrong. But I believe God has revealed to us what is about to occur. And I want you to try to follow me as best as you can. In the future, there's going to be an event. I don't want to speculate on what this event is, I don't want to speculate on how it will occur because the Bible doesn't tell us. We simply know that there is going to be an event. And I also want to make it clear that this event could happen next year or it could happen in the next 20 years. I don't know. All we know is that something is going to occur in the Middle East. Now, whatever this event is, it will cause the King of the North, which is the United States of America, to send its troops into the glorious land. Now, whether this is Israel or Palestine, I'm not sure. But whatever occurs, America will be prompted to send its troops into this area of the world. Now, when America and possibly a coalition of Western countries arrive, it will result in the overthrow of many of the nations that are part of the Arab League. However, what you must understand is that during the overturning of the Middle East by the United States of America and possibly its allies, the question is going to arise, what do we do with Jordan? We are talking about the country of Jordan. And to understand why this question is relevant, we have to know a little bit of Bible history. You see, during Israel's journey from Egypt to the Promised Land, they would encounter three tribes of people. They were the Edomites, who were descendants of Esau, the Moabites, and Ammonites, who were descendants of Lot. Now, what I need you to understand is that God gave Israel specific instructions regarding these specific tribes. Notice how God commanded Israel in reference to the Edomites. In Deuteronomy 2:4-5, it says, "Ye are to pass through the coast of your brethren, the children of Esau," this is Edom, "which dwell in Seir, and they shall be afraid of you. Take ye good heed unto yourselves, therefore meddle not with them. For I will not give you of their land, no, not so much as a foot breadth, because I have given Mount Seir unto Esau for a possession." Notice what it says in regards to another tribe called the Moabites. "And the Lord said unto me, distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle. For I will not give thee of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession." Now notice what it says regarding the third tribe called the Ammonites. "And when thou comest over against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them. For I will not give thee of the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I've given it unto them, I've given it unto the children of Lot for a possession." You see, according to the Bible, God commanded Israel not to mess with these three specific tribes because God had given their land to them as an inheritance. And what I want you to understand is that these three tribes refer to the country of Jordan today. And understanding this, we can now begin to paint a picture of what this final battle is going to look like in the Middle East. What we must understand is that during this incursion in the Middle East, during this invasion in the Middle East by the United States and its allies, they're going to be asked the question, what do we do with Jordan? Understanding Bible history and understanding that God had historically commanded that Israel would not mess with these three tribes of people, which is modern day Jordan. While they're there in the Middle East, in the glorious land, they're right next to Jordan, which neighbors Israel. And so the question is going to be asked, well, what do we do with Jordan? And what they're going to decide to do, probably prompted by the evangelical leaders within the United States, they're going to decide that we're not going to mess with Jordan. So whatever this event that occurs in the Middle East, Jordan will escape the conflict because the United States and its allies will leave Jordan alone. And it's likely the reason it refers to the chief of the children of Ammon is because the chief city of this country was called Rabbath Ammon, the site of the modern day city of Amman, Jordan's capital. Thus we understand that this must refer to Jordan's government.
He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape.
And now we see the migration of this war, which began in the glorious Holy Land, we see that it begins to migrate down south into the country of Egypt, the original king of the south. Again, we don't know why America and its armed forces would do this, nor do we understand how Egypt fits into the scenario. All we know is that Egypt is taken over by America and its allies.
But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps.
Now, I'm not sure if this gold and silver and all these things represents literal treasures that are within Egypt, or if it represents the Egyptian currency. However, all we know at this point is that the United States of America will control the economy of Egypt during this time. Then it says the Libyans and the Ethiopians will be at his steps. I think a better translation for this would be the Libyans and Ethiopians will follow in his steps. In essence, the economies of the Libyans and Ethiopians will go in the same route that the economy of Egypt did. And that means that not only will America control the economy of Egypt, but it will also control the economy of Libya and Ethiopia. And what we must understand is that Ethiopia today is not the Ethiopia of Bible times. Most likely, the Ethiopia that Daniel 11 is referring to would really be northern Sudan and southern Egypt today.
But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many.
Now, I've heard many suggestions regarding this particular verse, and in particular, these tidings that come from the east and the north. And this phrase has actually been the cause of a lot of debate and discussion amongst, prophecy scholars. Now, some people believe that this represents these tidings that come from the east and the north represent the gospel. And if you want to believe that, I'm not going to dissuade you on that at all. But what I want you to understand is that the east and the north has already been defined within the chapter of Daniel 11. You just don't realize it yet. Now, in order to understand this east and northern territory, we must revisit something that was mentioned earlier in my series. I believe it was episode number 3. And if you recall, the Greek Empire broke up into 4 different kingdoms. One was north, one was south, one was east, and one was west. And if we remember, the king Seleucus, which was one of Alexander's generals, he took over the eastern portion of Alexander's kingdom. And we must understand that the eastern portion of Alexander's kingdom ran all the way from Syria all the way to like Pakistan, okay? Now, what we also remember is that Seleucus also conquered Lysimachus's territory, which he was the king of the north at the time. And thus we understand that when Seleucus conquered the kingdom of the north, which is now modern day Turkey, he became the king of the north and the east. And thus we understand that the kingdom of Seleucus represents the same territory down here in the 44th verse of Daniel 11. It represents all the way from Turkey, all the way down to Syria, all the way east, all the way towards Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the area of the north and the east. Thus we understand that Seleucus' territory that he ruled in times of antiquity is the same territory that will become relevant at the end of the world. Thus we now see that after America attacks the South, which is northern Africa, there will be some sort of intelligence that is going to come from the north and the east. In essence, there's going to be some sort of intelligence that's coming from Turkey and many of the Middle Eastern nations, from Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan and maybe even Pakistan. There's going to be some sort of intelligence. There's going to be something that's going to occur. And whatever this intelligence is, it will cause the United States of America and its allies to move with fury and quickness to neutralize whatever this clear and present threat is that will occur in the Middle East.
And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
Now we get to the final verse of this chapter, and here's where the papacy now comes back into play. You see, even though we don't know what triggered the United States of America to go into the glorious Holy Land in the first place, we do know the results of this invasion. What's going to happen is that America will plant the tabernacles of someone's palace in the glorious Holy Mountain. And according to Daniel 9:16, the city of Jerusalem is the Holy Mountain. Now, understanding that Daniel chapter 11 parallels Revelation 13, and we see that in Revelation 13, the land beast becomes the enforcer to the sea beast, we then understand that it is the United States of America that becomes the enforcer to the papacy. Thus, we begin to see this being manifested here in Daniel chapter 11 at the end of this war. And we can see here that the United States of America designates a portion, a segment of Jerusalem to the papacy. And again, I'm not sure how this occurs. I'm not sure what this will look like or how it will be manifested. But all we know is that the papacy will have a role within the confines of Jerusalem, and they will obtain a presence within that city. Now, the question is why? Why does the papacy need a presence in Jerusalem in the final days? And what I want you to understand is that this civil battle is a precursor. It begins the spiritual war that happens in Revelation 13. And once you understand what occurs after this war in Daniel chapter 11, but before Michael stands up in Daniel chapter 12, you will understand that the papacy has to be in Jerusalem before the time of trouble. And I would tell you why right now, but we unfortunately are out of time. And so next week, you're going to find out exactly what occurs after Daniel 11, but before Daniel 12. And you'll find out next week on the Daniel 11 Chronicles.
Next week on the Daniel 11 Chronicles.